To A1R Psychic Radio here on Moonstruck TV with Amanda Hall Psychic all the way from the Gold Coast here in Australia. Hope you're having an absolutely fabulous week this week. It's been a really busy week for most people around the universe. It's interesting because I've been very busy as normal, but yesterday I did a show out of New York and it was a completely different audience to what we have here on A1R Psychic Radio. And it was interesting to connect with people at the start of the full moon in the Northern Hemisphere. And everybody was sort of saying that basically the same things that I'd been sort of hearing and seeing in the lead up here in Australia to the full moon in Sagittarius. And some people are calling it affectionately the strawberry moon. And if you really want to get technical, there's a different name for every full moon every month of the year. And I don't tend to sort of buy into that because I think the full moon is the full moon, regardless of what label you want to put on it. But this one was really different in as much as that everybody seemed to feel the effects of it. Even people that normally don't feel the effect of the full moon were saying, goodness, what's wrong? Why can't I sleep? I'm feeling agitated. But at the same time, I'm feeling this tremendous wave of excitement. And it was like the two things don't gel. 1 minute I'm feeling really edgy and cranky and could bite somebody's head off. And then the next minute, this wave of almost unbelievable excitement, like the night before, Christmas Eve, the night before Santa's coming. And it was like the two things didn't sort of gel. So it was interesting when I was talking and working with people yesterday out of New York on the show there, that everybody was feeling the same sort of thing. And people were phoning in and saying things like, I've never, ever felt a full moon like this in my life. Now I understand what people talk about when they say that they can't sleep. So I thought we'd sort of talk about that first at the top of the show before we go into our usual things, because this one really took me a little bit by surprise. Yes, it's the full moon in Sagittarius, and for those regular viewers, you'll know that I'm a Sag. So normally I could honestly say that I get excited about this full moon because to me it's almost like an opportunity to kickstart my year for the second or third time, where I normally sort of sit down and look at what I'm personally doing in my life. What do I need to let go of? What have I achieved? What do I hope to achieve before the end of the year? And it's almost like a shot of adrenaline to me. It gives me that sort of kickstart because it's winter here and I'm not a winter person. It usually sort of starts to energize me and gives me creativity, and sort of I usually find just prior to this that I've got a real low spot in my energy where I just want to hibernate and curl up on the couch with a good book and sort of lock the cold away and sort of not really talk to anybody. It's my little bit of hibernation time. Not that that happens for very long, a few hours at a time. But this year it was sort of very different. And I mean, yes, I'm an astrologer and yes, I work with the moon cycles and I have a fairly good idea of what's happening around the universe most days, but this one did catch me off guard. I normally personally don't have trouble sleeping in a lead up to a full moon or during a full moon. And I sometimes think, gee, people probably just do this out of habit. They look at the calendar and say, oh, good, it's the full moon. Well, then I can't sleep, and talk themselves into not sleeping. Well, I can categorically say this time it affected me in a way that I could not go to sleep for love nor money. No matter what I did, I couldn't go to sleep. And even if I did sort of start to drift off, my mind would not stop. It was almost like I went through things in my life from as far back as I can remember being a little girl. Things that obviously I'd tucked away for later on actually came to the surface, and I looked at them and I said, oh, for heaven's sake, let go of that. Why would I be holding on to that? Something that happened when I was 7 or something when I was 10. And it was like a real clear out, and it wasn't anything scary. It was just sort of like a highlight package of my life of the things that I'd put away to deal with later. Well, later happened to be in the last 3 days. It all sort of happened, and it was like a slideshow. It went bang, 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 bang. But it was interesting to see how trivial some of the things are that we don't deal with at the time in our lives, and we put them away for later on. And I suppose for most of us, we never really revisit that unless we're forced to, or the full moon makes us do it. We tend to sort of lock all these things away in our subconscious and the unconscious part of our minds. And that sort of led me to look at it and say, well, okay, maybe this is sort of like an almighty purge for me personally, to release a lot of stuff from the past, which I thought I'd done, and sort of, wipe the slate clean and look at that there must be some new, big and exciting things heading towards me in my life because I need to make room for them. And we quite often talk about that on the show, that, you know, at the time of a full moon, it's like emptying out the closet. You can't possibly put any more clothes in your closet if it's full. You have to release some. You have to take some off the hangers and donate them to charity or pass them on or put them in the bin or whatever to make room. Well, our lives are no exception. We need to clear things out if we want to start to bring new things in. So it's really interesting because over the last couple of weeks, I have been sort of looking at things in my life and looking at, you know, the next stages of what I might want to achieve or where I'm taking my work and things like that. And yes, I have made a couple of decisions and there's a couple of changes coming up, and which won't affect this show. But it was sort of like, isn't that interesting that sort of by me physically looking at and making my adjustments, which I said I do, you know, a couple of times a year, I look at what's ahead for the next 6 months, usually in June and usually just prior to my birthday or thereabouts. And it's like this was sort of really synonymous this year. And I feel a lot of people are feeling the same sort of change. It was like we all had to stay awake of a night to sort of clear the clutter out of our minds, clear old emotions out, and get ready for some exciting new possibilities that are coming into our lives. So it has been, and it is still continuing to be, a very, very, very powerful full moon this month. And the full moon happened or is happening from June 17 or the 17th of June. So for those of you in the Northern Hemisphere, you started yesterday. For us here in the Southern Hemisphere, we started 24 hours before you. So it is a powerful full moon. So that leads me into talking about how we sort of work with a full moon, and we will get around to the card of the week in a minute, but I want to just focus on the moon because that's how I opened the show. And it's like this particular full moon, yes, it's in Sagittarius, so it's a mixture of being fiery, outspoken, sort of a little bit impatient, even excited, even sort of like you can't sit still. It's like you've got ants in your pants, you're sort of up, you're down, you're jumping all over the place, you're writing things down, you're starting this and you're starting that, but not really completing anything because your mind's just so busy and we're sort of jumping from one thing to another. Even though we're partially through the full moon cycle, I still want to how to work with a full moon, and there's no reason why we can't pick it up from in the middle of the cycle and continue on to the end of the cycle. How I like to work with full moons is I like to look at 2 days on the approach. So I started my process of the full moon back on the 15th of June or June 15. And I started with, I wrote a little list. I wrote 3 things that I wanted to release, but more importantly, I wrote 3 things that I wanted to attract towards me or to give a helping hand to that I am sort of working on. And it was interesting because the 3 things that I wrote that I was releasing this month were connected with work and with things that I'm sort of coming to their own natural conclusion or their own natural end. And it was like just enhance that, enable that to sort of work and allow that to sort of disappear out into the universe the way that it should. But by the same token, I wrote 3 things that I'm currently working on that I would like to attract towards me. So it was like I was feeling the energy even before the 15th, where I was starting to sort of focus on this full moon coming up in Sagittarius. So I started working with my full moon candles, and I started working with a candle that represents the fire signs in my range. So because I'm a Sag and I love working with a Sagittarian candle, I probably lit this one first every day versus the full moon one every day because I really wanted to get that fiery sort of energy sort of happening. And even my neighbours said, wow, what's that beautiful smell coming out of your house? Because I had the windows open. Everybody could sort of really smell the beautiful candles this time. And it's interesting because I work with them all the time, but it was just sort of as if everything was exaggerated. So with my full moon fire sign candle, we've got the 2 weeks there. I like to light 1 wick one day and 1 wick the next day. It just gives you a longer sort of burn time. And it's something I must talk to you about too. Working with soy candles sometimes can get what's called a frosting on them. If I turn the candle around, you can see that it's gone a sort of a different sort of colour. It's not vivid deep pink or deep red. And that means that there's nothing actually wrong with the candle. It's just the way that the soy wax sort of settles. And this is how you know that these candles haven't been mass produced, that they actually have been hand poured with love, and the intent, purpose and direction has been infused in them. And, you know, I've had people say, oh, there's something wrong with my candle, it doesn't look right. Well, that's just meaning that it's been hand poured, and this is just the way the candle's actually got its own personality, if I can put it that way. So don't be alarmed. There's nothing wrong with your candle. You don't need to throw it out. It doesn't mean it's old. It just means it's got a personality all of its own. Then I wrote a second identical list, and I used it underneath my full moon candle. So I put it underneath the full moon candle as well. Again, same principles, dual wick system, lighting one side one day, one side the next day. And again, you can see the little bit of where the candle wax is coming away from the glass itself. That doesn't mean that there's anything wrong with it. It's just the contraction of it being a little bit cooler months where the candle sort of shrinks a little bit. And if I turn it around, you can see vaguely on the screen where this one's gone into a little bit of frosting as well, where it's leveling itself out, where it's sort of saying, you know, like I'm hand poured, I've been poured with love. So this is my own character for my candle. So I just thought we'd clear that up today while we're talking about it. So for those of you that don't have the room for a big candle, you can always grab a gift box and make it up with whatever candles that you like. This week I've put 2 fire signs and 1 full moon, but you can certainly choose any one of the 28 in our range, and you don't have to work with the full moon if you don't want to. You can work with anything that you like. So for those of you that don't want to work with a candle, of course, you can always pop down to the local department store and pick yourself up a melt warmer. And with a melt warmer, we take a teaspoon each of each wax and putting that in at the beginning of the 7-day cycle. Same principle applies. Write your list out, read it out aloud before you turn it on. This is just a safer alternative rather than working with flames. And a lot of people sort of say to me, that's great, Amanda, because I don't really want to work with a flame. I don't really want to sit there and babysit it. And this is just a very good way of getting the same concept, and it's something that's safe. You can leave this going in the home or the office. Make sure you switch it off at the end of the day. So that's how we work with a candle. So if we're working with a candle, minimum of 15 minutes a day to 2 hours, we need to read it out aloud, what's on our list, and believe in what you're talking about. Anybody can write anything on a piece of paper, but if you don't truly believe in what you're asking for or what you're trying to attract or what you're trying to release, then nothing will work for you because you don't have belief in what you're asking for. So that's really a big part of the story, is that you must truly believe. And I always suggest you don't ask for the impossible. Ask for something that you know is possible for you to achieve in your lifetime. Don't sit there and say, oh, wow, it's the full moon. Please bring me all the money in the world. Well, you know that that's not possible unless you put effort and energy into it and you make it happen. It's not just going to land in your lap. So we're going to go on to the card of the week this week, the Simply Tarot card of the week. And it's, at first glance, you sort of might look at this and think, oh, isn't that a negative looking card? And it can be considered a little bit of a negative card. It is the 8 of Swords. It's the card of frustration, feeling bound and gagged. Now, it's interesting because she is bound and gagged in the photograph there of, you know, she's got a blindfold on, she's sort of tied up with ropes, and she's got the 8 swords behind her. And this is a little bit how I think people have been feeling with this full moon energy. It's almost like I've been feeling a little bit bound and gagged. You know, there's been so much I've had to deal with. I just want to take some time out and just sort of let the world go by and gather my thoughts. So don't look at this as a negative. Look at this as these may very well be self-imposed restrictions that we're putting on ourselves, that the full moon is asking us to release ourselves from the things that we feel in life that are holding us back. So I hope that's sort of given you a little bit more insight into what's happening with the full moon. And before we take our first caller, I just want to sort of talk about one of the other major configurations, which sort of goes hand in hand with what we've been talking about with the full moon in Sagittarius, is the planet Jupiter. Now, Jupiter's the planet of expansion, opportunity, luck, and including expanding waistlines, I might say. But Jupiter's been sitting in Sagittarius now since last December. He will be there till the end of the year. But Jupiter at the moment is going retrograde or backwards. And we quite often talk about that with the planet Mercury. But yes, some other planets do go retrograde at different times during their cycle. Well, Jupiter has actually been retrograde or going backwards since April. Now, this will go through till about the 12th of August or August 12 before Jupiter will go direct. Now, why is this so important? Well, not just for all the fire signs, but for every single sign. You may have felt as if from about April onwards that the things that you were trying to change or bring about in your life had sort of slowed down drastically. It was like, oh, I've got no motivation anymore. I've got no sort of oomph to get up and sort of give it a final push. This is the reasons why. Now, it's not saying that that's, you should give up on your dreams and your aspirations. It's just saying use this time to make sure that you're fine-tuning anything. It might be the time to go back and look at and make sure everything's as you want it to be and be ready to move forward again when everything goes full throttle. In August, be ready to move forward then. It's not necessarily a time to say that dreams can't happen. It's just a time of reassessing, reorganising, allowing our wisdom to come through. And we all have a certain amount of personal wisdom, but I think at times we're just so busy running around from hither to thither that we forget to allow that to sort of happen. So it's a time now to really make sure that we do that, and particularly as we head into July, because in July we're going to have our dear friend Mercury is going to go retrograde too for 3.5 weeks, and he'll just sort of finish about a few days before the Jupiter retrograde. So it's sort of like let's beat Mercury to the punch. Let's get in and sort anything out that we need to sort out now about our new direction in our life, and then just give ourselves a little bit of an easier Mercury retrograde. So we're going to take our first call, and it's Jessica in Nashville, North Carolina. Are you ready there, Jessica?
Yes.
Do you have a question for me, Jessica?
Yes, I do. I actually have a question about a guy named Brian, and he's been confusing me for the last from last year, and I just want to know what's going on. Is there going to be possible relationship between us, or?
I think with Brian, I don't think Brian knows what Brian wants. So it's really hard then for sort of, I suppose, Brian to put it into words what he's sort of expecting from you and what he expects from the relationship, because he doesn't know himself from 1 minute to the next what he wants out of his life and where he needs to go and what he needs to be doing. Look, I'm not saying the relationship's over. What I'm going to say to you, Jessica, is I think maybe take a step back a little bit and be a little bit more objective about the whole relationship, not just what's going on now. Have a step back, look at it from beginning to where you are now, and be very open and very honest with yourself. And I feel by doing that, I think you'll be able to fill in some of the gaps. I think some of the things that have troubled you over the time will start to make more sense. And it's like I can put that into a pocket and I can put that into another pocket and I can see the bigger picture. Look, I don't dislike Brian. I think he's a nice man. I think he's just had an awful lot on his plate, particularly in this last 6 months that he's had to deal with. And I think he's felt a little bit overwhelmed, not sure what the next step is. So he sort of seems to be like a fly. He's flitting from one thing to another and not really settling on anything to sort of say, okay, this is the direction that I need to go. So they're showing me from about August that the relationship itself will start to stabilise again. And I feel then you start to sort of feel more secure in the relationship. You feel more secure in how Brian feels towards you. And you sort of feel, yeah, I can see this really developing into something serious. But just changing the subject just slightly, have you been considering looking for another job? Because they're showing me a question mark around work, Jessica.
I have thought about it. It's the place I'm actually working at. It's actually I'm working for Fire. So I haven't had it look because I am a single mother, so it's hard for me to actually get out because I don't have vehicle and so forth.
Yeah, I just feel that there's something coming towards you as far as a work opportunity that will fit in with your current lifestyle, that will sort of, you'll embrace with both hands, and it's like, wow, this is good. I can see my life starting to unfold in a direction I'm happy with now. So that's good. Well, we're going to leave it there, Jessica, and we're going to move on to Joe in Denver, Colorado. Are you there, Joe? Hello, Joe.
Hello.
Hi, Joe.
Can you hear me?
Have you got a question I can work with?
Hi, thanks for taking my call. I'm just wondering what is in my space as far as relationship-wise, if you see something upcoming for me.
I do, Joe. Okay, the first thing that they were showing me, Joe, was that you've been through a lot of endings, change and transformation this year. Now, whether that's been conscious or unconscious, to me it's sort of been like a series of doors closing, and not just about relationships, but many, many areas of your life, as if you've gone through your life with a fine-tooth comb and put everything into their little boxes, into their little categories right across the line. That's a good thing, because in the process of that, you've actually looked at relationships of the past and learnt a lot about what you want, what you need, and what you need going forward. So now you have a very clear picture in your mind of the type of relationship you need for this stage in your life. So having said that, I feel that it's not too far away before you're going to attract a new love in your life. I'm seeing as early as next month, and I'm seeing a lady that I would describe as being sort of medium coloured, very interesting lady. I wouldn't call her drop dead gorgeous, but I'm certainly going to say she's interesting, she's attractive, she's got a bubbly personality, but at the same time there's this really innate sense of honesty there. You know, she calls it as she sees. And I feel that's a refreshing change for you, to have somebody in your life that's going to be very honest. There's always been people that have had an agenda or a hidden something or other in their lives that, you know, you go along for a while and then all of a sudden you see the real them and you think, oh, what did I get myself into? There'll be nothing like that with this lady. I really like her. I think the two of you are going to connect very, very quickly, and it's going to develop into a really serious relationship very, very quickly, Joe. And it's interesting because both of you haven't been in a relationship for some time, and it's like the age-old question, well, where do I go to meet somebody? And, you know, it's difficult, it's hard. But I'm always of the belief that when the time's right, the universe provides, no matter what, whether it's, you know, we bump into somebody in a market or we meet somebody at a gathering or whatever, when the time's right, it will happen organically. I don't think we have to physically try and force it. I mean, yes, we have to go out the door, we have to partake in life, but we don't necessarily have to force trying to meet people to make a relationship happen. Have you just moved house, Joe?
I haven't moved. I've changed careers. That's what I've done over the last year. I committed to ministerial school.
Right.
Ironically, about a year ago.
Okay, but did you make some changes to where you're living during that time too? Did you change the furniture around? Did you clear the cupboards out or something? There was a change within the home as well.
I started, I've been doing more work from home. I stream online. I've kind of created my own home, so to speak. I created a community about a year ago.
Okay, that must be what I'm picking up then, because they were sort of saying to me that the home was becoming very important with whatever changes were there. It was like, I feel really secure now. I feel I'm almost there with what I was trying to create.
Yeah, I'm trying to create a spiritual community where people can raise their vibration and their energy level, and they can find their spiritual gifts. That's what my baby wonderful. Is.
Well, I think you're on the right path, because from what they were showing me, keep it up, because whatever changes you've made around the home, and it was like literally moving from one home to another was how they showed it to me. You've got to keep that going because you are on the right path. It's good. There's more to come out of that, though. I'm you're going to have a different approach in the way that you help people open themselves up. And it's not it's one size fits all. It's sort of like encouraging people to explore their spirituality in a way that suits them, still within guidelines, but allowing people to put their own stamp on it, I suppose. It's the way I'm seeing it. You have a different approach to it. People sort of tend to sort of get into spirituality and they think everybody's got to follow like sheep the same rules, and that's not always the case. I think there's got to be your own personality somewhere in that as well.
I think I'm blending two faiths into my ministry. That's what my goal is.
Right. Well, I feel you're on the right path. Like the people that you're working with are certainly gaining more than you realise out of your, the sharing of the knowledge. I wasn't going to use the word teaching because I think you're doing more than that. You're empowering people. You're not just, teaching them something. You're empowering them to follow their own direction, and that's a very powerful journey that you're taking people on.
Is this relationship going to be somebody that I can think about marriage and kids with?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, it's a very serious relationship. So that's what I mean. You're finally getting the right person by your side that you need in every way. It's, beauty's only skin deep. It's the beauty that comes from within somebody. You can have somebody that's gorgeous to look at and they haven't got anything in their soul. You need the whole package, and that's what I see you getting, Joe.
Okay. Well, can I ask one more question if you don't mind?
If you're very quick, we've got less than 60 seconds.
Okay, I'll be really quick. I've been seeing my ministry out in Oregon, and I just wanted to know if you had a confirmation on that.
Yes, I do. I think there's going to be a bigger expansion with this than what you realise. So just keep moving forward and believe anything's possible, Joe. Anyway, that's where we're going to wrap it up. Until next week, have a great week, and I hope you enjoy the remainder of the full moon in Sagittarius. Bye for now.